This is Senator Gene Yaw. Welcome to a conversation with Senator Gene Yaw. Today, we are going to investigate the heroin epidemic, which is affecting all of Pennsylvania and the United States. We are here at the Community Arts Center in Williamsport, where we have as a speaker tonight the award-winning author Sam Quinones, the author of the book Dreamland. Stay tuned. I'm here with the author of Dreamland, Sam Quinones, and Sam, welcome. It's just great to meet you.
Thanks,
this book has become a little bit of a kind of a roadmap for me and all the work that we've done in the Center for Rural Pennsylvania.
Great.
Question in my mind, even when I started to read this, is why would somebody write a book like this?
I got into this book largely because of my interest in Mexico. I had been in Mexico 10 years. And I come back to the United States in '04 after 10 years in Mexico, take a job. And I was put on a team a few years later, reporters whose job it was to cover the drug war in Mexico. I was up here in LA. I was not in Mexico anymore. And so my job was to cover things that had to do with how drugs were trafficked across the United States. And I come upon this one story of...
you were a reporter
at the LA Times.
LA Times.
Right,
okay.
And at the time, I come upon a story of a bunch of deaths to black tar heroin in Huntington, West Virginia. And to me, that made no sense whatsoever. First of all, I couldn't imagine any heroin in West Virginia. My conception of heroin, now we know it, but back then I did not conceive of heroin in West Virginia. And also that this was from, black tar heroin I knew was only from Mexico in this hemisphere. And it's only really on the western United States. I did not conceive of it east of the Mississippi River, you know. And so I began to just pry into that, and really it was my interest in Mexican heroin traffickers and why they were doing such good business with selling a drug that I thought was passé, that no one would dare do. Why would anyone do heroin again, you know? We all know what an awful thing that is, you know. And so I got very much into the small town in Mexico that I write about in the book, and I went down there and I did a lot of reporting on that and talked to a lot of cops where these guys in this one town that had developed a method of selling heroin, like pizza delivery system almost, they had landed in 20 states. This was a small town, about the size of Lycoming College, I think, something like that. And it was a major heroin supplier for 25 states or something. I just couldn't believe it. But the whole time, the one question that never got answered until later was, why would they have any demand for heroin in West Virginia at all? And to me, that was a huge question. I began to realize it slowly. I was so focused on the Mexico side that was really where my attention was. And eventually I began to realize there's a much, much bigger story than this heroin thing in Mexico, out of Mexico, that is behind all of this, and that is the massive change in prescribing and pain management in the United States. It took place, it was really a revolution, takes place over about a 6 to 8, 10-year period in the late 80s and definitely gaining steam in the 1990s. And that is why we have people getting addicted, people got addicted to those pain pills. And those pills have drugs in them that are chemically very similar to their opiates.
One of the things that's very interesting you say that is this started, I mean, this is not a recent problem.
See, this is exactly right, exactly right. People think, oh, it's suddenly a problem, and no, it's suddenly being recognized.
Yeah.
It's been festering for 20 years.
Yeah, and that's when people ask me, well, if we pass a certain piece of legislation, is that going to fix the problem? Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. It's the immediate satisfaction, whether it's cell phones, whatever.
Or relief from pain. We want relief from pain that doesn't involve hard work on our part, and immediately takes care of it and just douses the pain. None of us like pain. It's bad, but but we have unrealistic expectations of how little pain is going to be in our lives nowadays in America, it seems to me.
And I've tried to tell people just an explanation that, and I picked this number out of the air, I admit that we'll be lucky if we see an impact in 10 years. I'll be happy if we change
I think
things.
what needs to happen is people need to adjust their expectations to be, my feeling is, let's be adult about this, that we created a problem believing in easy answers to complicated problems. The complicated problem is human pain of all its manifestations. The easy answer was opiate pain pills for everybody. And that's gone on for 20 years now, or a little bit more. And now we need to understand that you do not reverse an entire culture, really almost two generations of doctors that have been trained in this. You do not stop on a dime and reverse that. This is more like a supertanker change that needs you. Turning the supertanker around is a long process, and that is really, unfortunately, where we stand today. People need to understand that this could be with us for a while.
Here's the question.
Yeah.
Last year in Pennsylvania, we had about 3,400 deaths relating to drug overdoses. And the majority of those are heroin related.
Yeah.
We also, that's about 10 people a day we lose in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We lose about 1,000 people a week in the United States.
Yes.
To drug overdoses. Just recently here, and I know this will be foreign to you being from LA, but we had a big snowstorm here about 3 weeks ago. We had 17 inches of snow.
Right.
And during this entire snowstorm, they covered virtually the whole East Coast here, the Northeast. Yes. There were 4 people died.
Right.
That was the headlines in all the newscasts. What I don't understand, and I have raised this question many, many times, why aren't people concerned? We're losing 1,000 people a week, but yet we pay attention to the 4 people that died in a snowstorm.
Right, and I think it has to do with the nature of how we got into this. Very gradually, slowly. There is the difference between this problem and crack cocaine is that there's no public violence. When I was a crime reporter during the crack years, you couldn't avoid it. Bullets whizzing through apartments, crack dealers on the street, carjackings, everything. It affected every part of life. This has all happened very quietly. And there's certain, I don't know, it's almost like the drug itself has not narcotized our own outrage or around feeling of alarm somehow that we need, that we just, but I think it's just this gradual thing, the way the cooked frog basically, who's in the water, and they just gradually turn up the heat, and he doesn't feel it. It's a tolerance to the heat, and eventually he dies. Well, that's kind of where we are with this as well. It seems like we have kind of become inured, numbed to the pain of the agony of this kind of death over and over.
I think you're right. I grew up in the Vietnam era, and doing some comparisons, we losing 1,000 people a week, 52,000 people a year. I think in the 10 to 12 years of the Vietnam War, there were 56,000 deaths.
Right.
People were outraged. They were marching in the streets. They were burning buildings, occupying campuses, doing everything. And we just don't see that now. And that's what's so frustrating to me.
My frustration as well. I don't understand it myself. I explain it somehow because, well, nobody's talking about it, or not many people have, up until recently, have been talking about it. And that's a real problem. And it doesn't affect. It doesn't feel like it affects everybody because the crime problem is really not a part of it, which is a good thing. You don't want blight, and the crack era was horrific too for that. But to me, I share your outrage and kind of feeling of disappointment too. Like, all these people could be dying, and nobody really is paying much attention. Why is that?
I think you're right. It's just very quiet.
It is, and the drug itself kind of narcotizes people. I don't know, it's a weird thing how I've thought about that maybe it's just the drug itself that narcotizes people. But I mean, you do see pockets of just horrible pain when it comes to this. I'm on Facebook, and on Facebook there's a thing called the Addict's Mom, and then the addict's grandparents, and there are these pages where people write in, and you're stunned. But see, here's the thing: when I was doing this book, early on, I would mention to people, like on a plane, well, I'm writing a book about this, and immediately the same thing over and over. Their voices get real low. They look around, make sure no one's listening. My cousin died of this.
Everybody knows somebody.
Everybody's got a story, and we walk around like pretending we don't. Meanwhile, crime rates are dropped.
Yeah.
In LA, we have the lowest homicide numbers, not just rate, homicide numbers since the 60s. All these good things happening because of that. But it covers, all of that is good, it's wonderful, it's fantastic. It does mask another problem, though.
You're giving a talk. I won't refer to it as a lecture or anything
okay,
like
good.
that. Thank you. Tonight to the general public.
Yeah.
What do you hope to accomplish when you talk to a group of people?
I generally try to make people feel that they're not alone. I think that might be an important goal. Make people feel that let people know how we got into this, and that the response overall is got to be a community response. It has got to be a response that takes advantage of all the talents and all the organizations and all the energy people have for doing this, and that if you don't do that, if you just everyone continues to work alone, I don't see how you get very far with that. And so it's that kind of idea, but also giving an idea of how we all are part of this problem. I think we got into this, because Americans wanted their pain dealt with and didn't want to take accountability for their own consumer choices. I have stopped drinking sugary sodas.
Right.
I've stopped. I've swim more. I walk more. I walked around your beautiful river yesterday. I think it was a 4-mile trip. It was great. I love it. It was fantastic. I feel like, got to get out and see America and this kind of wonderful thing, not just the hotel room. But to me, it feels like we as Americans need to understand that each individual choice adds up to this problem that we've had. And one of the things that we did as Americans was tell doctors we want to be pain-free, and we don't want to be part of our own wellness solution. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I think that that's irresponsible. I think that's childish. And I think, no, I'm going to start, as I got into this, I began to think, you need to start making your own better choices. And so, walking more, I do a lot more swimming now. When I'm on the road, it's tough, but at home, I pared back a lot. I don't eat any food that's advertised on TV. And we have the ability, as Americans, this is, we take control of our own future. We don't let the future happen to us and our lives happen to us. And so my feeling is I'm going to do what I'm going to be the change, and it helps me. And I hope maybe other people do the same. But I think the reason for that is because I do believe that big part of what got us here was that people began to say, Doc, I want no pain, and I'm not really too keen on being, changing anything about me. So give me a solution.
Well, part of it also is that government was involved in that because part of the reimbursement rates for hospitals is tied into patient satisfaction.
I know, and those things have to change too. I talk about that.
And I think that they are, but I give you credit.
Thank you.
Somebody has to raise these issues, and I think that you've done it in a way that is getting national attention. And
that's nice.
If we can help here, and I'm really looking forward to your talk to people tonight and see what the response is.
Yeah, me too. I've been to a lot of different areas now. What amazes me is that I've been going to a lot of very small towns and giving these talks, and I never imagined that when I was writing the book. I thought I'd put out what I thought was the book was going to die. I thought the book would come out and no one would care because I couldn't find anyone to care about this. I saw that this was more extreme than what you're discussing. I couldn't find anybody, Where is the outrage here? People are dying all across the country. They've got addiction widespread now, creating a brand new market for the Mexican drug traffickers. Yeah. And no one gets mad about that. No one gets outraged, and the parents won't talk. Now what's changed is, of course, the parents are talking more. Maybe not as much, but it's certainly more. And that has animated other people in the society, you know. But the doctor evaluations are one of these small things, but a very important thing in why we got here. Because doctors, those were levers through which you extorted pills out of doctors. You know?
Yeah, and I know that the doctors that I know, that the older doctors, they were trained in medical school, that OxyContin and things like that were not addictive. So just prescribe them like M&Ms.
I know, and that's what got us into this problem. Yeah. But that was the pharmaceutical companies talking. Yeah. There was no science to back that up. There's still no science to back that idea up, that the virtually non-addictive. And the problem is that what came along with that was, if they're virtually non-addictive, then there's no ceiling on dose. You could give as many as you want.
Right.
And then that leads to an enormous supply of stuff that leaks out into the black market and gets us to where we are today.
I'm with Dr. David Jane Gilmore, the president of Pennsylvania College of Technology. And President Gilmore, in addition to your official duties here at the college, I know that you're also chairman of Project Bald Eagle. And would you tell us a little bit about Project Bald Eagle, how it got formed, why, what we hope to accomplish with that?
Certainly. It's a community coalition that was formed to address the issue of opioids in our community. And so what we did was looked at gathering people from every aspect of what happens in the county and put them at a table and hope for them to collaborate, work together, educate each other, and begin to address the opioid addiction issue in our community. So we've got law enforcement, we've got education, we've got the treatment providers, we have the judge, we've got yourself as a legislative representative, and both college presidents. We have an addict, a recovering addict, we've got the hospital, we've got everybody that we can think of at the table, a county commissioner, to begin to address what we have to look at.
One of the things that we're doing with this program is we're talking about the book Dreamland, and the author who's giving a talk here, Sam Quinones. And one of the things that he said is about the necessity of a community effort. And I think that that's the focus of Project Bald Eagle.
It is, and it was really exciting to hear him say today at our lunch meeting that this is the kind of thing that's going to help. People operating in silos, keeping their own work and their own efforts in sort of insulation, is not really going to be how you address this in any given community. So I felt good that our Project Bald Eagle group and our working together is taking the steps correctly to break down the walls, create communication, create common goals and objectives, and that's how we can begin to make progress.
That's going to be progress is going to be a long trip, I'm afraid, just from everything that we heard, not only today, but other studies that we've done and the reports that we've done through the Center for Rural Pennsylvania. It's we didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not going to get out overnight.
That's right. It's a problem that requires patience. It's a problem that requires study, and it's a problem that requires everyone to work together. And I think we've repeatedly heard, as you've no doubt heard in your hearings and in the other testimony you've received, patience is the thing we all need to have.
One of the areas, I guess this comes with patience a little bit. I know that the police department here carry Narcan or naloxone. And that was a decision that you made?
Yes, it was.
And I think you're to be congratulated for making that decision here, but how has it gone over with the police? How do they feel about it?
You know, first of all, they're very proud that they were the first police department in Lycoming County to carry naloxone in their vehicles. And second, they are feeling prepared. They have gone through the proper training, They understand the circumstances under which it could be administered, and they feel like it's another step in the preparation to provide the appropriate safety and security for our students. And that's why the Penn College Police are here, and they're doing a great job for us. So I think they're embracing it as one more tool in their toolkit to save lives and take care of our students.
Well, they certainly are faced with, what's the population here? How many students do we
Over
have?
6,000 students.
So they're on the forefront.
They are, and they see all kinds of things. Now, fortunately, we deal with more alcohol issues and things like that in the college environment than we certainly do heroin or opioid addictions. But we have had those things happen on campus and for our students who live off campus as well. And it makes me have a little bit more confidence that the police are ready to deal with that, and we don't have to wait for the other first responders.
I'm in at Lycoming College with the president, Dr. Ken Tracty, and this whole idea of having the author of Dreamland come to town originated here at Lycoming. So tell us about it. When did you first find out about it? Whose idea was it? What happened?
Yeah, it's interesting, Senator. My first knowledge of it, I believe, came when President Gilmore at Penn College told me that some students at my college had asked her to support a program that they were going to do. No, seriously, to give you an answer, we have a new living learning program at Lycoming College. Where students have the opportunity to develop a theme and a concept that they're interested in and then choose to live together. And then the students get a faculty member or two as an advisor, and they're provided a budget to do some programming. Some of that programming is supposed to be on campus, and some of that programming is supposed to reach out to the community. So this particular group has an interest in issues of addiction, substance abuse, and the like. And one of the faculty members, Professor Holstein, who's their advisor, is a professor in psychology who has some expertise here. And my understanding is that as the students talked about what kind of outreach program to the community could be particularly impactful, working with Professor Holstein, they became aware to some extent of the extensiveness of the opiate epidemic that faces the United States and Pennsylvania, and which we see manifesting itself here in Lycoming County. And she suggested Sam Quinones work to them, and that's how the whole thing began to unfold.
I just think it's really interesting because, you know, you're a board member of Project Bald Eagle also, and working at this, and I know that you had heard me talk about the book Dreamland, which I recommended. I think everybody on Project Bald Eagle that they should read it. And we've had some very interesting conversation today with Sam, and it's really been an enlightening experience so far.
Well, I've also finished reading his book now, Senator, and I believe my wife is nearly finished with it as well. It's really an extraordinary piece in terms of the multiple threads that he traces and assembles so that we can really understand how we came to the point that we're at in our country. I think any time that we're trying to develop public policy to combat a problem, an epidemic, to move forward on an issue, we need to understand how did we get here. If we don't understand how we got here, I don't think we can design good policy. And what I think Sam will help all of us understand tonight is how we got to this point such that we're facing this kind of epidemic where probably 40,000 people last year in our country died of opiate overdoses.
Yeah. What's the impact here at Lycoming? Do you have drug programs here that, drug education programs as well as real college courses?
Yes. In the co-curriculum for all of our students, there are opportunities and indeed expectations for them to become aware of the dangers of substance abuse, whatever that substance might be. But given Professor Holstein's research interests, those are also integrated into the curriculum of the psychology department. And so, yes, both in the curriculum and the co-curriculum. And in fact, there are students who are doing research with Professor Holstein as well. I was not aware of the proportions of this issue until I started having conversations with you and then joined Project Bald Eagle and became more educated. And it definitely made it easier to read his book, having had that experience on the board.
Well, I'm looking forward to this presentation.
This problem that I'm going to talk about tonight is not just here, it's not just in Pennsylvania. It is across the country, it is coast to coast. We would not have a heroin problem today, it's my contention, without OxyContin. It created people ready to look desperately for anything that was cheaper and more readily available. Nor, I can say, would we have the kind of heroin problem that we have today without cheap, potent Mexican heroin. Something that we're seeing this now, of course, coast to coast, but people were dying in large numbers without heroin through the last decade, dying from pills that were overprescribed, and not one of them you need to remember, not one of those was stolen in a pharmacy. They were all prescribed. This epidemic is the first example, in my opinion, in modern post-World War II America, of a drug scourge that did not start with street mafias or drug peddlers. It started with doctors coast to coast being taught, pushed, cajoled, pressured, whatever the term you want to use, into prescribing lots of pain pills and attempting to help us assuage the pain that we could not live without. And so quietly, quite to the contrary of what everybody says, quietly people began to get addicted to these pills. But there is no solution. There are many solutions, each part of a mosaic of solutions that every town or county or region seems to me must try.